What's up, hot boy? Oh, is that up? What are you doing? Are you sweet? Thinking about fishing? What was your tail wagging? Yes, think about fishing. What's going on, bros and broettes? I got a little tackle talk for you today. We're going to be talking about something that if you're not fishing it right now, you probably should be. And that's football jigs. It's a great way to attack structure, as well as cover that's out deep, where kind of these fish really, they lie from late summer even through fall. Like football jigs in fall are a great way to catch bigs among like timber, if you got wood, if you got like submerged gravel points and things along those lines. But I got a few tips for you, not only with using a jig, but how you set up your jig to make you more efficient. I guarantee you they will get you more bites, and they're just little tweaks that can step up your jig game to just the next level. So make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Everybody say hi to Bogster. He just wants swimming in the pool because he's so hot. Let's talk jigs. So when it comes to football jigs, I really have two. And there's a very simple reason. So I have a stand-up football jig just like that. Notice that it has that flat head just like that. This is a trick my buddy Justin Lynch taught me. But notice that it has more of a standard, if not somewhat fine wire hook. And then I have this guy right here, which is your standard football jig. Notice though, that is a 3X hook, and it has the standard round head. So both of those are Boss jig heads. And buy them off Tackle Warehouse. I'll put links to it down in the description box. They come without skirts, but the big difference is, so that stand-up jig is more of a quote-unquote structure jig, so gravel, openish water. You can fish it around some brush, some wood, but if you're dealing with bigs, like for instance in Florida, if you're fishing brush piles, it's a no-no. I've opened up that jig on 8-pounders multiple times until I learned my lessons. So that's when I'll go to that 3X hook, that stouter one. So that's going to be a judgment call on your part. I really like that stand-up jig and the action it gets from a football jig standpoint. It definitely rocks differently and gets more bites, but I haven't found that stand-up style jig with that 3X stout hook, and I need that 3X hook when I'm fishing for either these Florida bass or say in spring, late summer, just when I catch bigs, dude. Like, you need that stoutness. So those are the two jigs I use. And like I said, you'll notice that they don't have skirts on them. So that's one of the things that I do to really step up my jig game. I have this guy right here, my giant bag of Skirts Unlimited materials. I have so many different colors. And then I also have this thing right here, which if you guys are religious watchers of the video, you'll know exactly what it is. And that's my Skirts Unlimited skirt making kit. It has in it everything I need to go and make a custom skirt. It's got this simple little ring tool. It's got a little pull through tool. It's got some layers. It's even got some bands, but the bands actually suck, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. So yes, you're going to be like, Mike, that's super generic. Like, everybody knows you can make your own skirts. That's true. But let me show you what you need to do to make the right own skirt, or to make your own skirts correct. There's a few little tricks that make for a better flaring skirt, and it will lead to more durability. So number one, never use these. Never use these bands or whatever that they sell or that the kit comes with. You can see them, they're in black, they're in rubber. They're crap. Absolute crap. They literally rot, and they just don't give you the flare that you want. What you want to do is get these guys right here. These are I think it's Boss O-ring skirt material things. Let me see if we can get a better. They almost look like what the hell are they called? Like wacky rig rings. Basically, they're skirt collars, but they're more of like a circular gasket or rounded gasket, and they do two things. One, they don't rot like those bands that I showed you, and two, because it's a tighter, it's a lower diameter. Basically, it really pushes and flares the skirt out. I'd highly recommend you use those. Now, if you are a person who already has skirts like on their jigs, or they buy jigs with skirts, here's the other thing that you can do, and I think I've showed you this trick before. Everybody's got some braid laying around. Go ahead and you can see I basically took 40-pound braid that was laying around. This is actually a star flash skirt. This is another trick too that you can do too, is you can go to a round rubber, but that star flash skirt, wrap 40-pound braid around there, and it really makes, you can even see it on there. Do you see how much that thing flares out like that? Like, it flares out a whole bunch. Plus, you don't get any skirt slippage, which can be really annoying on football jigs, especially if you're stroking them or like popping them up and things along those lines. So my first tips for you are tie your own skirts, but do it the right way. Use those O-rings and play with colors. In the end, the easiest and best way that I've found is basically match your watercolor and then add something darker. So if you got green water, like we fish a lot on the TVA, or if it's fairly clear, magic craw, green pumpkin, watermelon. But then I'll throw like a little bit of brown in there, or like dark green pumpkin or something like that. I just find that, especially with these jigs, oftentimes you're fishing, this is like a half-ounce football jig. I mean, I'm going to be fishing in like 8 plus, 10 plus, 12 plus foot of water. It's a deeper water kind of deal usually that I'm using it for. The deeper you get, the more, I guess, the less light penetration there is. So it seems to me like a dark silhouette. So something natural colored plus a little bit of tone that's kind of like dark and shadowy kind of creates a silhouette down there, and it almost looks more natural than it would if you just stuck with all natural colors. Just my personal thing, and something that has been successful for me in practice, kind of, especially as I fished up more at the TVA. So this is another little jig trick that I can show you, and it seems really kind of like stupid and simple, but JT taught it to me, and I kind of think it's kind of cool. So a lot of us will thread, let me take this off and I'll actually show you the process. A lot of us, when we set up like a football jig and that, we actually thread the plastic all the way up onto that keeper right there. So I like more or less of kind of like a chunk approach, because this jig is really supposed to be kind of like loose and moving. It's supposed to have as much shimmy and sort of flutter as you drag it and drop it off of things, or drag it through and pop it through cover. And I want the trailer to actually mimic that. I don't want the trailer to kind of be this, I don't know, like a ball and chain that it's dragging around. I want the trailer to have fluidity. So this is a little Flappy Daddy. A Mega Daddy's another good example, but it's more of like a paddle style deal. And that's usually when I do this, is more on like the paddle or chunk style. When you start getting into like stuff with kickers and that, I don't do this as much. But with the paddle, so what I do is, first of all, I cut that thing down, and then I will run the hook through it, but instead of putting it all the way through, just like that. So basically, see if I can show you guys this. I don't run it up onto the keeper, because I want this thing to sort of dangle around, and if it slides up a little like that, I'm fine with that. If it slides down, I sort of want it to have sort of like a looseness and a fluidity on it that I think if you actually thread that plastic all the way up on the keeper, you don't get. Here's the other thing too. I want this pretty much on the bottom, or I want it to have bottom contact. The more soft plastic trailer that you put on there, the more it floats this jig up and doesn't create like sink, or more inhibits the sink. So the more I can remove off this plastic trailer, the better. Otherwise, you could just kind of run it up onto the keeper, but less plastic means more bottom contact, more continuity, and it also creates more fluidity for the trailer. So along those same lines, that's pretty generic trailer. You know, if you guys watch the videos, you've seen one other trailer that I really like to do is, where did I put it? I like to play with stick baits on my jigs. So this is my classic one. This is my like big fish deal. Let me show you how I rig it up. It's basically a wacky rig, and I've been showing it to you guys for years, and still a lot of guys still laugh at me. Like, I think I put it up back in like 2016 or something like that, a long time ago. But it catches bigs, dude. Basically, I like an O-Beast. It's a gambler bait, but find yourself, I would not recommend doing this with a standard Ace, or like a standard, don't do it with a Senko. Senko sucks, dude. It's too soft. You need something that has a little denser, slightly harder, not like a hard as a rock plastic, but a slightly harder plastic, because it gives it more, just more fungibility. It gives it more bounce, I guess. But I take this thing and match up with the inside hook slot, and I just pop it through just like that, and you basically get that guy. And it freaking dude, it twitches. There's candy bars in the fridge, and I've been thinking about one, so I want a Twix. But this twitches on the bottom really nice. I also do this with a Demiki Stinger, but try out whatever kind of stick style bait that you like. Wacky rig it. It adds a lot of bulk. The only downside is it does float up the jig. It causes a lot slower fall, but maybe that's a benefit in the situation that you're fishing. I know when I drag this thing over brush piles and drag it to the top and pop it off, the way this thing falls after I pop it off the top of a brush pile is absolutely sick, and I cannot resist it. At the same time, though, I think there's a lot of different ways to rig a jig with a stick bait that you can play around with. Another thing that I really like, I don't have it rigged up here, is I'll actually take more of a Senko style bait and I will put it and thread it directly onto, just straight onto the jig. So basically it would look like something like that. So the jig trailer would just be that straight Senko style bait. I cut it in half, so basically it sort of mimics two things. It's almost like a little Ned rig, so I can tweak that along the bottom. Do I have any of my little finesse jigs that I made? I doubt I do. I make these little finesse football jigs and basically cut the skirts way down, and then I put those stick baits on them. It's a great way to use a heavier weight. Oftentimes they're 1/2 ounce, 3/4 ounce, but a very small compact package. Works really good on the ledges. If you have super clear water, you can still use a heavy enough jig to get down deeper, but your actual presentation is fairly compact. The other thing that I'll do too is when I have that stick bait on there, I found that's a great way to stroke a jig. They don't see it that much. Oftentimes they see the flapper style trailers on those football jigs. The stick bait on the back, when threaded on, gives a very fluke-like darting action. It hunts a lot more, as my buddy Jacob says. So when you actually stroke that jig with that straight tail on the back, it might dart that way, it might dart that way, and then when it actually falls, it quivers instead of kicking kind of straight down. Has a really cool action. I've played with it a lot on Pickwick where the water's a little bit clearer, and I think it's an awesome presentation. That's not to say that you can't drag it in that. That's what I do with that little smaller one. I almost treat it like a Ned and sort of just shake it and make it stand up in that. But stroking it is another excellent way to fish a football jig that catches bass late in the summer. Now you might be saying some of these tips are kind of common sense. Yeah, but sometimes it's a little nuanced details that really make a difference. And this is one thing that I think no one talks about that is hugely important, that will literally change your game jig fishing. It is the dumbest, simplest thing you can do to improve your jig fishing, or to at least improve your hanging up when you're fishing with a football jig. So this is a Boss jig straight out of the package. See, it's got a tight brush guard. There's no skirt on this guy. The one thing that you need to do before you even put a skirt on these, and it's what I do because I fish a lot of these jigs around cover and around thicker stuff. Literally, dude, it's such a simple thing. You don't want that brush guard to be in one place. You want to flare it out so it looks like that. Now, the reason they come all tight like that is because when they manufacture them, the brush guard comes as a little tubular deal, and it's stuck in there and glued. But that is not the right way that they should be, because you want, basically this does two things. One, it gives better hook penetration because the hook can come through less bristles because you spread them out, but it also gives better hook coverage because if you get a branch that's like over here and it hits, it's still protected. It basically gets everything out of the brush guard that you possibly can. It is literally the simplest, stupidest fix that you can do on a football jig, and trust me, I fish a lot of brush. Like, it's so easy, and it improves how clean you run through the cover by 100 times. Like, there's no doubt about it, dude. But all you do is you flare out that brush guard, and it gives you better hook penetration, but it also protects the hook better. Simple things that you can do. Go ahead and drop down in the comments box if you guys got anything to add with football jig fishing. It's a great way to catch fish right now. I like it because I can do so much with it. You know, you can kind of reel it down a gravel bar. I can fish isolated targets that I find on my graphs or on my active target, and the fish just tend to respond to it. Like, it's a good It's a good way to catch bigs right now because they seem to be on structure and they seem to be deep. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe. Add any kind of extras that you have in regards to football jigs down in that comments box. I'll put links to, these are Boss jigs. I got some gambler stuff that I mentioned. I got some Skirts Unlimited skirt kits. I'll put links to all that stuff at Tackle Warehouse. So if you want to check it out, learn more, or maybe try some football jig fishing, you definitely can. But have fun. Go get a jig. Make it all pretty. Put your own little fancy skirt on, and go catch some bass. Tie lines, guys.